Res. Res? What is Res? If you were to ask me just a few months ago if I'd be reviewing a Sega Dreamcast game, let alone own a Sega Dreamcast, I don't think I'd believe you. But life works in mysterious ways, I guess. Interestingly enough, out of all of the 6th gen consoles, the Dreamcast was the only one that I've had zero recollection of ever playing on. I knew what it was, and even seen a few in person prior to getting one myself. But despite always being interested in the overall aesthetic of the console and what the system had to offer, I didn't decide to snag one up until recently. The one I got was off of some random guy living in California, who had his eBay account for about as long as I've been alive. It works fine, but the laser in the GD-ROM was busted, so that meant shelling out a little bit more money to obtain and install a neat little thing called a GDMU. Think of it as an emulator, but you can actually play on Dreamcast hardware with it. Regardless, however, this is Res, a game that released on the Dreamcast in Japan and PAL regions, but didn't get a proper US release until the PS2 port released a few months later, despite the fact that the PS2 version released on the same day with the Dreamcast version in Japan and PAL regions. Clearly, this is a subtle reference to the fact that the US always got the short end of the stick when it came to video game releases in the early 2000s. Res is essentially a 3D on-rails shoot-'em-up music game hybrid that just so happens to be the brainchild of Tetsuya Mizuguchi, his earlier work consisting of racing games in Space Channel 5. It's a safe assumption that he used working on Space Channel 5 as a launching point for the creation of Res, being that both games are in the music genre. I hope you're taking notes. Okay, so there's no .pdf online for Res's manual that's in English, so if there's any information that gets omitted from this video, it's either because I didn't know, or I figured that it would just drag out the video's runtime. And buddy, that's the last thing I want to do. This entire game has this early 2000s sci-fi hacker vibe that I just love. So over the course of the game, your mission is to infiltrate a malfunctioning artificial intelligence and fight off viruses and corrupted security systems. But the main way this game conveys its storytelling is with a little something called show and never tell. The story in this game was never meant to be the focus anyway. Like with old 80s arcade games, the story's nothing more than a justification to explain, I don't know, whatever's happening on screen. The real meat and potatoes of this game, however, is the visuals and how they combine with the music. Okay, so do you guys remember back on Windows Media Player how there was this feature that allowed you to add a visualizer to whatever audio that you were playing? That's the best way I could describe the backgrounds in this game, and it looks phenomenal. The aesthetic of this game is immaculate, and it just goes to show that if you stylize your 6th gen game a bit, from a graphical standpoint, it can actually age well. And the music? Trust me, the music delivers. I'm still not completely confident on what synesthesia means, but from what I've played, the projectile hits sync with the music and have vibration feedback for certain controllers, aiming to create this sense of synesthesia. I'm playing with a beat-up Dreamcast controller, however, so I can't exactly experience this myself. Once you beat a level, you could play on to the next one, with 4 levels in total. There's 3 game modes: traveling, which is basically a practice mode where you don't have to worry about getting a game over, play, which is literally just the main game, and score attack, which is admittedly self-explanatory. The game's controls aren't even all that complex either. You move around with the left analog stick and lock onto targets by holding down the A button, then releasing. Also, there's this special bomb thing that you can activate once by pressing the B button.
No, unacceptable.
It's basically a get out of jail for if you can't handle the amount of projectiles that are flying at you. That's another thing. This game's difficulty starts off relatively easy, but eventually gets ball-bustingly hard as you make progress. I lost count of the number of times that I died right before I was able to complete the level. The theme here being escalation, the music dynamically evolving and adding in more sounds and instruments as the difficulty increases. Yeah, sure, you could go to YouTube and listen to the game's soundtrack, but there's just something that feels empty without the gameplay to go alongside it. And that's why I have to recommend this game to just about anyone looking for a video game experience that they never had before. In terms of style and direction, this game looks like something that came out of a F-Zero GX track, more specifically Phantom Road. The closest thing I can think of to compare Rez's art style to is Cosmic Smash, which ironically is another Dreamcast game that released 11 months prior to Rez. For anyone wanting to experience Tetsuya Mizuguchi's masterpiece, I'd recommend playing Rez Infinite. It's both a remaster and a direct sequel to the original Rez, that boasts several new game modes, VR support, and they even did a promotional video that's an interview with the man himself. Stating that there was a lot of heart and soul put into this game is an understatement. I've played a fair bit of games in my time that have a cool Y2K sci-fi aesthetic, but there's just something about Rez that sticks with me. And to wrap this video up, I just want to thank you all for watching this video to the end. I know it's a pretty hard thing to do, being that our attention spans are rotting by the day due to modern trends. But I also want to thank you all for the support on my last video, being that I was not expecting that video to do well whatsoever, and each and every last subscriber I receive means something to me. Though I have to admit that I felt slightly uncomfortable with opening up about myself and my past near the end of my last upload. It may not seem like much, but I really did feel like I was risking a lot by doing something as small as that. Speaking of small, I'm aware that this video wasn't necessarily an hour-long analysis by any means, but that's because it didn't need to be. I'm still currently working on my next big project, and I wanted to get this video out to hold both you and me over until it's finished. I'm aiming for a late July or early August release date. Let's hope that I can reach that. Thank you for everything, and I think I've taken up enough of your time. Please take care of yourself.